This Shabbos, we read Parshas HaChodesh. Together with Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, we conclude Sefer Shemos and proclaim Chazak Chazak V'Nischazek. Then, from after, we read from Parshas Bo, HaChodesh Hazel Lachem Rosh Chodashim. This is the commandment to determine and sanctify the new month, with Nisan being designated as the first of the months of the year. We already find reference to this mitzvah in the very first Rashi in the Torah. Rashi, quoting Rabbi Yitzchak, writes that the Torah really should have begun with this mitzvah of HaChodesh Hazel Lachem, the commandment to establish the Jewish calendar and the holidays. The Torah begins with Parshas only to affirm the Jewish people's claim to Eretz Yisrael. But imagine if the Torah had indeed begun with the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, we would have no account of creation, no Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, no Cain and Hevel, no Mabel, no Noach, no Dar Haflaga, and we would lose out on the stories of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and Yosef and his brothers. Why would this mitzvah be so central that the Torah could have begun with it? Perhaps something deeper is being taught. The foundation of existence is time, not in the cynical phrase that time is money, but in the deeper scientific and philosophical sense that time is life. Rab Shlomo Ibn Gviro, may his merit protect us, in his work Mekor Chayim, writes that life itself is bound to movement and time, an insight that modern science has also recognized. It is therefore fitting that the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people concerns the sanctification of time. Yet the Ramban addresses a further difficulty. If the Torah began with HaChodesh Hazel Lachem, it would omit earlier mitzvos mentioned in Parshas. Avraham was commanded Bris Milah, and Yaakov Gid Hanasha. Additionally, he points out that Parshas teaches us about the creation of the world. Should one not first know about the Eibishter, the creator of the universe, before being commanded in a mitzvah such as establishing the months? The Ramban answers this in his mystical way based upon the secrets of the Torah. But Reb Leibel Eger, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, in his Sefer Torah's Emes, offers a different explanation that brings us back to the historical moment in which this mitzvah was first given. Even after the Jews emerged from slavery, the effects of centuries of oppression still lingered. The physical chains fell away, but the mentality of slavery, the exhaustion, the fear, and the sense that life was controlled by others remained. A people in such a condition cannot immediately be expected to engage in lofty teachings about cosmology or philosophical reflection about the Creator. Nor can a nation that has lived in degradation for generations suddenly accept the full obligation of mitzvos. Only when a people began to recover dignity and independence can they truly accept Ol Malchus Shamayim. Avraham and Yaakov could accept mitzvahs such as Bris Milah and Gid Hanasha because they were spiritually elevated individuals living in freedom and living in Eretz Yisrael. But their descendants in Egypt had endured generations of crushing oppression. Therefore, the first message the Jewish people needed to hear was not cosmology, not philosophy, and not yet the full range of mitzvahs. They first had to hear HaChodesh Hazel Lachem. The new era has begun for them, a new time of freedom. Only after hearing that their time was no longer the property of their masters, but now belonged to them, could they begin to accept the obligations and responsibilities of Torah. Additionally, Kiddush HaChodesh not only teaches about time, it also teaches about participation. In the Krovos for Parshas HaChodesh, we recite the piyut Avi Kol Chozeh, composed by Rebbe Eliezer HaKalir, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, in which he describes how Hashem taught Moshe Rabbeinu the mitzvah of sanctifying the new moon. The piyut states, B'fanav tzag ele kodesh la'id edos hachodesh. Hashem placed malachim there as witnesses to testify that they had seen the moled halavana, the renewal of the moon. But this immediately raises the question, why would angels be needed as witnesses? After all, there stood the greatest and most faithful Bezdin, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen, and Kaviyachol, the Eibishter himself. What need could there be for additional witnesses? The Midrash explains that it was not angels who served as witnesses, but rather two simple Jews. Why? Because the sanctification of time cannot be determined by leadership alone. It requires the participation of the populace, the ordinary members of the nation, the commoner from among the people. Only when the nation responds together does the declaration of the new month become complete. As the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah 24a records, Rosh Bezdin Omer Mekudash, V'chol ha'am onin HaRav Mekudash Mekudash. The head of the court proclaims sanctified, and the entire people answer after him, sanctified, sanctified. Thus, the sanctification of the month does not rest with the court alone. It is affirmed by the response of the nation itself. This leads to another lesson from the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. Today our calendar is fixed. Since the time of Hillel, who established the calendar, the months are determined through astronomical cheshbon, calculation. Originally, however, the new month was established through Re'iyah, through witnesses who actually saw the new moon. The question is asked, if calculation can determine the new month accurately, why was it not established that way from the outset? Why was Re'iyah, with all its complexities and problems, required? The answer is that calculation alone would lack an essential element. Calculation is primarily cerebral, an intellectual determination, but the sanctification of the month was meant to be an act, something that takes place through human participation and experience. As the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah 28 cited by Rashi states, Kizeh re'eh v'kadesh, like this you shall see and sanctify. The new month is therefore not merely determined, it is sanctified. A Jew can live al pi cheshbon, approaching life primarily through intellectual calculation. But the higher way is to live al pi re'iyah, through vision and action, through the lived experience of Torah. A person can be a Jew primarily in the realm of ideas, through theories and intellectual formulations. But the deeper life of Torah is lived by the doer. When Judaism becomes visible in one's actions, one's home, one's children, and the environment one creates. In this way, the mitzvah of HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem unites several fundamental lessons. A Jew must reclaim his time and not be enslaved by the world's distractions. A Jew's life is not sanctified only through leaders, but through his own participation. And the holiness of Jewish life ultimately emerges not from calculation alone, but from vision expressed in action, being a doer. Then, the teaching of the Gemara becomes a living reality. Kazeh re'eh v'kadesh. See it and sanctify it. Shabbat Shalom.